Yes, I'm wearing the same sweater I wore in the last video. That's because I just recorded the last video, like back to back. I'm not going to go change so that it looks like there was space in between. I don't know why I just shared that with you. Anyway, I started this channel back in March of 2024, which means 2025 is the first full year of making these episodes. Yay! I thought I would put together a video of all of my personal favorite moments of the year. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy these as much as I do. Wikipedia says, on 7 July 1900, during the Boxer Rebellion, Ji and 119 other Christians were rounded up and asked to renounce Christianity. Asked. Do you think they said please while asking? Will you please renounce Christianity? Pretty please? No? Oh well. We asked. Off with his head. Wikipedia, right? Time out. It is tangent time. I want to focus a moment on one of those lines. Do not sadden your guardian angels. I have to admit, my angel has been in that second category far too often. And yeah, okay, if I'm being perfectly honest, the third category when I was younger as well. In this vision, Mary gives Catalina easy instructions on how to avoid making your angel sad at Mass. You just ask God for whatever. In fact, the more you ask, the better. Seriously, that's it. Why wouldn't you do that? I am going to take this moment to make a public apology to my guardian angel. Guardian angel, I am sorry for every time that I get distracted at Mass and leave you empty-handed at the offertory because I didn't take the time to simply ask God for, well, anything. I am also sorry for all the times when I was a young fool for being bitter at Mass and annoyed with my parents for making me go. And on a side note, thank you, Mom and Dad, for making me go to Mass, even on holy days of obligation in the middle of the week. He was completely and utterly unrepentant. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. And if that were where St. Maria Goretti and Alessandro's story ended, it would be impressive enough. But no, the unrepentant Alessandro was sleeping in his cell one night when, in a dream, he found himself in a garden. Maria was there, dressed in white, and turned to him. In her arms, and I'm getting goosebumps, in her arms, she held lilies, 14 lilies, the same amount that Maria had been stabbed. She smiled at him and handed Alessandro the lilies, one at a time. And as each one reached him, they turned into white flame and burned his hands. When he woke from the stream, he was a converted and repentant man. He understood the message from Maria as a message of forgiveness. This universe is massive, and it's also unforgiving. The amount of emptiness out there is literally a concept we cannot fathom. However, I'm supposed to believe that by some fluke of nature, the sun happened to form with enough proper material around it to gather up a planet that just happened to have the right elements at just the right point, close enough to the sun and yet far enough away from the sun to develop first an atmosphere that would protect us from the very sun that we also need to live, and then develop trees and clouds. The planet was then tilted to create seasons that would make life thrive. This life would then, by sheer accident, evolve into beings whose bodies and brains are so complex, we still don't know how everything works. Like, what? Don't get me wrong. I believe this is all a possibility to how things happened, just not the by accident part. One little thing doesn't happen in the right place and at the right time in this massive emptiness we call space, and humanity never exists. One must take a giant leap of faith to believe all that happened with no design, no plan, and by sheer coincidence. It is far more plausible that my mere existence, your existence, was done on purpose by someone who knew what he was doing. Yes, he, respect his pronouns. This Joseph was responsible for feeding the people. If you answered both, you are correct. But wait a minute. I get how this Joseph fed the people. He warned the Pharaoh of the famine, and they were able to store up food to prepare. The people of Egypt were fed, and others, even from outside of Egypt, traveled there to obtain food, including Joseph's father and brothers. But this Joseph? How did he feed the people? Well, he raised, provided for, and instructed the young boy who would later hold up bread and wine, consecrate it, declare that it was his body and blood, making it so, and then instruct us to take it and eat it. In other words, Joseph would raise the bread of life, which would be given up for us. When this child was first born, Joseph would lie him in a manger, a food trough, in the town of Bethlehem, which means house of bread. I love the Bible so much. Okay, calming down. As Father Joseph said Mass, the congregation froze in awe. Right there before their eyes, Father Joseph left the ground. He was full on levitating and flying back and forth. This would become common for him, both indoors and out. It not only happened during Mass, but also during meals, while doing chores, while just walking a path and noticing the beauty of God's work. There Father Joseph would go, flying into the air with plenty of people to witness the event. Now that's what I call an air fryer. Geb was the god of the earth. He was credited with making the soil of the earth fertile. Apparently, happy wasn't enough. Hey! He was supposed to be super powerful, a king among the gods. Aaron, a mere human, struck the dust on the ground as he was instructed by God, and the dust of the earth became gnats, or lice, or mosquitoes? Apparently, the Hebrew word could have included any of those, but I digress. The point is that Geb was gutted and not real. Nut was the sky goddess. She was often depicted as stretching across the sky in a protective dome. But it was God's domain, not hers, from which lightning flashed and hail like never seen before rained down on the land. Anyone, man or beast, left in the fields were struck down. Crops were destroyed and trees shattered. Nut was nullified and not real. Pause here. I want to point out that all it took to convert Moses was the peace and tranquility of a group of monks. No scolding, no judgment, no preaching, just peace and tranquility. And Moses was like, hey, I want some of that. Continue. One day or night, I'm not sure, Moses was in his cell or maybe meditating in the desert. Either way, a group of robbers came in and tried to rob him. Now, remember, Moses is very big and very strong. He overpowered the robbers, dragged them to the chapel where his brothers were praying, and asked them what he should do with them. Can you imagine being one of the monks praying in the chapel? A fellow brother comes in, dragging along a group of would-be robbers, asking, since it's not Christian to hurt these guys, what should I do with them? Anyway, Moses ended up tending to them, and the robbers converted and became monks themselves. Pause here. I want to point out that all it took to convert a group of robbers was to knock them out and drag them to the chapel. No scolding, no judgment, no preaching, just knock them out and drag them to the chapel. For legal reasons, I would not recommend this approach. All right, back to the story. Moses continued to grow in his faith, often chastising himself for not being perfect. He still felt a pull toward his old life and scolded himself for the temptation. He was known, however, to be humble and loving with a deep desire to help others. Pause here. I want to point out that all it takes to help my channel is to subscribe, like and share this video, and leave a comment. No scolding, no judgment, no preaching, just subscribe, like, share, and comment. Depending on the circumstances, I might give St. Mark Ji Tianxiang a call. Or maybe I'm feeling despair and need the joy of Servant of God Michel Dupont. Maybe I'm dealing with pride and need some help from St. Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrows. Maybe I'm feeling depressed and anxious and call out to St. Dymphna. There are so many other examples. I'll call them out by name, a litany of saints, and then I will talk to them. I will tell them everything that is going on, that I just don't know what to do. I will cry. I will yell. Eventually, I will calm. I will be reminded of the lessons this great cloud of witnesses have taught me. This is why this channel focuses so much on the lives of saints. The more I learn about their lives, about what they went through, the more I can hear them when it counts the most. Their lessons resonate in my ears. I can stand before the saints, a complete mess, and they pray with me and lift me up. They point me to Jesus, sometimes on the cross, sometimes resurrected, but always in love. I can then give Jesus my burden. I hand it over to him. I put my trust in him. He is where the saints always point me. That's what makes them so special. That's what makes them such amazing friends. With them and with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I shall fear no evil. I mean, look at these people who have my back. It got crowded in here fast. Number 4, the largest man-made grotto exists in Iowa. Yes, in West Bend, Iowa, there exists a Catholic grotto made of precious and semi-precious gems. The value of the stones, as of this recording, are estimated to be worth over $4 million. On a side note here, ChatGPT was convinced this grotto was made out of corn cobs. Could it be more anti-Catholic know-nothing rhetoric? Then again, corn cobs in Iowa. That's not exactly too far-fetched an idea. I don't know about $4 million worth of corn cobs, though. The crowd eventually dispersed. Well, that's a relief. It looks like the convent is going to be safe and sound. No, wait, they're coming back? At about 11 p.m., somewhere between 50 and 60 men arrived at the convent. They were setting fire to tar barrels. It wasn't long before firemen were called to the scene. Whew, what a relief. It looks like the convent will be saved after all. I'm sorry. What was that? They've decided to join the growing crowd of spectators and just watch? I'm sorry, and do nothing? The mob eventually broke down the doors, ransacked the building, and then set it on fire. My prayer is that all Christians will learn to love Mary the way Catholics do. She will always lovingly point you to her son that she loves and that Jesus loves in return. She's on our side, you guys. She wants us to walk with her because she walks with her son. Adele would spend her days traveling as far as 50 miles to find children to teach. She would often offer to go into homes and help with household chores in exchange for the privilege of teaching their children. I'm sorry, can you imagine? Hey, I'll do all of your chores if you'll let me just let me teach your children. Who would say no to that? Standing on top of a 14er, it's hard not to contemplate the beauty of God's creation. What's that? You're impressed I've climbed a 14er? Well, maybe not climbed. Okay, I drove up the highest paved road in North America to get to over 14,000 feet, and then walked a slightly sloped path to get another 150 feet to the summit. I'm not the athletic type, okay?
Oh, come on. All right, Jennifer, get rid of it.
Do you see what I mean? Erica is not going to let hate harden her heart. She is going to lead as an example and teach her children the power of forgiveness. She is going to teach us all what it looks like to be strong, faithful, and powerful as she carries her cross and offers her suffering up to Christ. You can see it in the clip as she repeats, "That young man." She offers it up to God in prayer. The suffering is there, and it brings her closer to Christ as she repeats the words he spoke from the cross. Such amazing grace. At a very early age, it was clear that Rose would be very pious as well. And when I say very early and very clear, she was reported to have raised her aunt from the dead at just 3 years old. Rose was 3, not the aunt. I'd say that was pretty clear piousness at a pretty young age. Think about that. At 3, most kids are just learning to form like 3 to 5 word sentences and maybe stacking blocks. This 3-year-old was like, "Hold my sippy cup. Let me go call on the power of God real quickly." The next day, my husband dropped me off at the airport, and I breezed through security. The airport had just renovated and updated their security area, and I was pleasantly surprised by how streamlined it was. I arrived at my gate, also recently renovated, over 2 hours early, and decided to get something to eat, get settled into a surprisingly comfortable area, and didn't mind the wait at all. We've got this. As comfortable as I was, it did not seem all that long before I heard the announcement that it was time for my flight to board the plane. I started packing up my things, and then... Oh, wait a minute. Where's my watch? After a couple of minutes of frantically looking around for my watch, I realized that my rings were missing as well. I had left them at security.
A week after I release a video on a satanic priest turned saint, I turn around and do a video on Halloween. This is spooky stuff. Should I do the entire video like this? No, probably not.
When Tobit was done with this task, he went to his courtyard and fell asleep. While sleeping, a bird pooped into his open eyes. Wait a minute, that can't be right. That can't be right. That doesn't sound like something you would find in the Bible. I did not know that there were sparrows on the wall, and their fresh droppings fell into my open eyes, and white films formed on my eyes. Okay. Weird. Just to be as clear as I can that this is speculation, let me put on my spectacles of speculation. A fun idea, but probably too serious of a subject this time around. So let's just stick with the screen and take these spectacles right on off. I initially recorded this entire speculation part with those glasses on, but it seemed a little inappropriate. So we're gonna try this again. We know what happens next. She didn't. She didn't know Joseph would believe her. She didn't know that the elite magi would visit her child along with lowly shepherds. She didn't know they would have to flee to Egypt, or that she would lose Jesus for 3 days before finding him in the temple. She didn't know that her son would turn water into wine. She didn't know she would stand at the foot of his crucifixion. She didn't know about the resurrection, and she didn't know that Pentecost was coming. She didn't know any of that. And she still said yes. Her fiat is really one of the most important events in all of world history. Her trust here. We should all look to her on what it means to say yes and to trust God, even when we have no idea what tomorrow will bring, even when the angel departs from us. All right, that's it for the year. Thanks to everyone for all of your support throughout this entire year. Please keep praying for me and this channel as we head into 2026. I am praying for all of you. Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, have mercy on us.